Hey guys, and welcome to the video. In this session, I want to discuss a fairly beginner topic, and that is the difference between our two different types of loop in Python, that being the for loop and the while loop. So I'll do an example of each, and we'll discuss what's similar about them, so what we can do with each, and then what's different about them, along with their different use cases. So before we write any code, let's just talk about it in simple English. We use a while loop to basically do the following. If we say, while some condition is present, go ahead and do something. So maybe in simple English, whilst it's still raining outside, keep up the umbrella, or whilst it's still raining, let's stay inside. A for loop is to basically go through a sequence and do something. So in simple English, you might say something like, for each item in my shopping list, go and find it and buy it. So that's the main difference in my point of view. This one has the potential to kind of say, keep checking something. If it's present, let's go ahead and carry on. So this is kind of looping round and round again, checking a condition, and yeah, off it goes. It keeps carrying on until some condition is no longer met. For loops are different because they're more data driven. Those are for going through things. In my view, I think the for loop is probably the one that I tend to use the most, certainly in my line of work. So we'll start off with that. So if we said, let's do some numbers. So numbers are 10, 20, 30, 40, and 50. A for loop would be, I suppose, in pseudocode, for each number in numbers, print the number. Or we could say for each number in numbers, go ahead, multiply this, and add it into a different list. Let's start off with the basic syntax. So we'll say for num in numbers, sorry, let's actually spell it right. There we go. For num in numbers, do something. So this num variable here is rather interesting. So the way to envision this is that this is almost like a temporary variable which is equal to 10, then 20, then 30, then 40, then 50. So if we do a print here and say, okay, value of num is equal to, then put in num here, let's run our code. And we see we get 10, 20, 30, 40, 50. So this is deterministic in the way that this loop basically depends on how big this is. This has got 1, 2, 3, 4. This has got 5 items. Therefore, this will do 5 iterations round. So for the first time this loops, comes to 10. Num is equal to 10. So therefore, value of num, 10. Comes back around again, 20. So num is now worth 20. And then this happens. So you can do things like, I don't know, new is equal to a new list here. Then we can do new.append, and we'll append num times 2, like this here. So for each number in this list, we're first going to print it, and then for that number we're on, we'll double it, stick it into this new list, and then at the end, we should have a new list of length 5, with, in this case, all of these numbers doubled. So let's hit run, and there we go. Yeah, 20, 40, 60, 80, 100. Now, there's a few keywords I want to take a look at here, and these keywords appear in both, and those are break and continue. So break, the job of break, and this is the same for both types of loops. This is where there's a bit of crossover here. Break's job is to say, if the word break is hit, stop the loop and let's get out of here. So if we did something like, maybe we'll say, if num happens to have a value of 30, break. Okay, let's hit run. So before we run this, let's just try and visualize this. For each number in numbers, print and append double that number. We come to 10, yeah, no problem at all. This won't fire because 10 is not equal to 30. Same for 20, 20 is not equal to 30. When we come to 30, it's then going to say, if 30 is equal to 30, yeah, that's true, break. So we're only going to expect to see, in this case, 10, 20, 30, then we stop. Let's hit run. There we go. Nice. So 10, 20, 30. And yeah, this is stopped here because it's only done the first 3. Once we hit 30, this break bit here has basically said, okay, it's time to finish. So these two didn't really get looked at. It's a bit similar to this one as well. If we do continue, continue is a little bit different. Well, actually, it's fairly different, I would say. So the job of continue is to basically say, when this is hit, stop the current iteration and come back to the top. If we did it here, we wouldn't actually see anything because it's at the bottom of the loop. If we do it at the top of the loop, however, when this statement is hit, it means that these two lines will no longer happen whilst we're looking at 30. Instead, it'll come to the top and then look at the next item, 40. So we'll clear. Let's look at the output. So notice what's missing here. We've got 10, 20, 40, 50, and we're missing 60 here. That's because when we were looking at 30, continue hit, which basically means like we don't do this, we don't do this. We come back to the top to now look at 40, and in this case, because 40 is not equal to 30, so we don't hit this, therefore we print and append. So that's the difference between break and continue. Continue just stops the current cycle you're on, comes back to the top, and goes on to the next number, or next item in your sequence. Break stops altogether. So you could do something like this. If num is equal to 40, let's break here. So we'll just try both. Okay, 10, 20, 40, then we stopped. We don't see 30 here because we skipped these two. Okay, then moved on. And then we don't have, in this case, we don't have 100 because when we hit 40 here, we stopped the loop altogether. So break kills the loop completely. Continue just stops the current iteration that we're on. So that's how for loops work. Let's go ahead and take a look at while loops. And admittedly, I don't use these as much. I'm not sure that's just because my line of work is like that. But yeah, let's have a go at this one. So with a while loop, we do something like this. We say while, and this has to be some condition that equates to true or false. So if we do this, this is then going to happen forever, basically. So if you just kind of hard code it and say while true, it means that this is going to forever happen. So if we hit run now, see how our program is running? It's never ending. That's because of our while loop. So let's close that again. Let's just do print 1, 2, 3 to be a bit more obvious about this. And there we go. That's going on and on and on. Now, let's bring in break and continue here. So let's do something like this. Say x is equal to 1. Now our condition is going to be while x is less than 100. Let's go ahead and do a print statement. We'll do value of x. Actually, this probably should be an f string. Put an f there. We'll do this here and this. Now, if we run this like this here, it's going to be, well, not very good because it's just stuck at 1. There's nothing to make x jump from 1 to 2 to 3. So what we can do is when we print it, say print it, and then do x plus equals 1. This is now going to increment 1 all the way until here. There we go. So this ends at 99. So basically what's happened is at some point x was 99. We printed off, it's 99. 99 then became 100 because of this one here. So envision that x is now 100. So when we now come to do the evaluation again, we're saying while 100 is less than 100. Well, no, this is now false. So that's why we no longer see a print statement here when x is 100. So let's take a look at how break and continue might fit into this. Let's suppose we've got a number which makes the loop finish. We could say something like if x happens to be equal to 20, we'll just break here. So just like the for loop, it's going to kill the entire loop. There we go. It does that here. That's a way to exit the loop early. Then we can take a look at continue as well. So let's just do something down here. So if we just do end of loop cycle like this here. What we could do, so I'm not quite sure what that symbol is, that should be one of these. Let's say something like this. If x, if we do mod 2 is equal to 0, so we're saying if x happens to be an even number, we'll do this. So we'll clear and hit run again. Now it looks a bit different, so see how it doesn't do end of loop cycle every single time? So see how we get 2 prints and then end of loop cycle here? That's because, of course, we're skipping because of this here, but it's the same premise as our for loop. If some condition occurs, stop the current cycle, head back to the top, reevaluate, and move on. So that is my simple take on how to compare for versus while loops. So one more time, a while loop is to basically say, whilst we have some condition, go ahead and do something. So the condition this is, whilst this number is less than 100, do all of this. Of course, it stops after that. The for loop is to basically say, for each item in a sequence, do something with it. So that's like your shopping list one. For each item in my shopping list, go and find it. Hope this has been helpful, and of course, if you have any things you want to see in Python explained, feel free to drop me a message in the comments. Cheers for watching, guys, and have a great weekend.